Everything, I asked. My father didn't even hesitate. The house, most of the savings, everything we've set aside for the future. Across the Sunday dinner table, Dad slid a thick folder toward my younger sister, Melissa. She lowered her eyes like she was embarrassed, but I saw the smile she was fighting. Mom raised her glass. Your sister deserves it, Nadine. I stared at the folder, then at the walls surrounding us. For 3 years, I had sent $2,180 every month to keep the mortgage on those walls paid after Dad's income dropped. Melissa hadn't paid a cent. Yet somehow, she deserved the house. I deserved to keep funding it. Dad leaned back. You're doing well. You have your career, your savings, your apartment. Melissa needs security. I nodded slowly. Okay. Mom blinked. That wasn't the reaction she expected. I congratulated Melissa, picked up my purse, and left. That night, I canceled one automatic bank transfer. 30 days later, Mom texted me. The house payment is due. And suddenly, I understood something my parents apparently hadn't considered. Who exactly did they think was going to pay for Melissa's house? My name is Nadine Carter. I was 32 when that dinner finally changed the way I saw my family. For years, being the responsible daughter had sounded almost like praise. When Dad's income dropped 3 years earlier, Mom called me worried about the mortgage. They needed temporary help, she said, just until things stabilized. I agreed. 1 month became 6. 6 became 12. Eventually, nobody even asked anymore. Every month, $2,180 left my account automatically. I kept telling myself I was protecting my parents. Melissa, meanwhile, was always the one they worried about. She was 27, still trying to become financially stable, and every family decision seemed to come with the same explanation. Nadine can handle herself. I had heard it so often that I almost believed independence was something I should be punished for. But even I hadn't expected that dinner. Dad tapped the folder in front of Melissa. The transfer is already handled. Melissa finally looked at me. Nadine, I didn't ask them to leave you with nothing. Mom immediately interrupted. Nobody is leaving Nadine with nothing. Look at her. She has more than enough. That sentence landed harder than the announcement. Not one person at that table mentioned the mortgage payments. Not one person said, Nadine helped preserve this house. They spoke about the property like I had never contributed anything to keeping it. So I refused to give them the argument they seemed prepared for. I stood. Well, congratulations, Melissa. Mom's glass stopped halfway to her mouth. That's it. What else would you like me to say? Dad frowned. Don't make this into something ugly. I'm not. And I meant it. Their house, their savings, their decision. I drove home, opened my banking app, selected the recurring $2,180 transfer, and pressed cancel ***. No angry message. No threat. No warning. If Melissa owned the future, then Melissa could start paying for it. For the next month, nobody mentioned the dinner. Then, one Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed. Mom, the house payment is due. I read the message twice. And one question became impossible to ignore. Had my parents really given Melissa everything while assuming I would keep paying for it? I stared at Mom's message for maybe 10 seconds. The house payment is due. Not can we talk. Not we have a problem. Just a statement, like she was reminding me that the electric bill was sitting on the counter. I typed 4 words. Then Melissa should pay. My phone rang almost immediately. Mom. Nadine, what does that mean? Her confusion surprised me more than anger would have. It means Melissa owns the house now. She should make the mortgage payment. There was a pause. Nadine, transferring the house doesn't change the family arrangement. I sat forward. What family arrangement? You know exactly what I mean. No, Mom. 3 years ago, you asked me for temporary help because Dad's income dropped. I agreed. Nobody ever said I was signing up to pay your mortgage forever. But you've always paid it. That doesn't make it my mortgage. Her voice tightened. Melissa can't afford $2,180 a month yet. I almost laughed, but nothing about it felt funny. Then why did you give her a mortgaged house she can't afford? Nadine, please don't do this. Do what? Turn everything into money. You earn more than Melissa. You have savings. Family helps family. I looked toward my laptop, remembering Dad sliding that folder across the dinner table. Interesting. What is? Family helps family when the bill arrives. But when you were deciding who deserved the house, suddenly family meant Melissa. That's not fair. No, Mom, what happened at dinner wasn't fair. Her breathing sharpened. Then she said something that made me stop completely. We knew you'd still help us. I didn't answer. Mom rushed ahead. You've always been dependable. We didn't think you would suddenly abandon everyone because of one decision. But I barely heard the rest. We knew. Not we hoped. Not we thought you might. They had made plans involving my money without ever speaking to me. So you discussed this, I asked. What? Whether I would keep paying after you gave Melissa the house. Another pause. Nadine, you're twisting my words. Did you discuss it? This conversation is going nowhere. Because you don't want to answer. Mom's tone turned cold. Fine. If you want to punish your father and sister because you're upset about an inheritance, that's your choice. She hung up. Less than 5 minutes later, another message appeared. Melissa, why are you punishing everyone over an inheritance? I started typing, then deleted it. Arguing wasn't going to tell me what I needed to know. I opened my banking account instead. I searched for the first mortgage transfer from 3 years earlier. Then the next. And the next. Month after month, the same payments appeared. I opened a spreadsheet and started entering every one. If my family wanted to talk about what Melissa deserved, I decided it was time to calculate exactly how much I had already given them. The final number on my spreadsheet was more than *78, 000 ***. I printed every statement. 3 days later, Dad called. Sunday, 4 o'clock, we're settling this as a family. When I arrived, Melissa was already there. So was my uncle. That told me exactly what my parents were trying to do. Dad barely waited for me to sit down. Your mother and I are extremely disappointed. You're successful, Nadine. Nobody denies that. But threatening this family's stability because you didn't get the house is beneath you. My uncle glanced at me. I opened my bag. I'm glad you brought him here. Dad's expression shifted. I placed the bank statements on the table. Because now we can discuss the whole story. My uncle picked up the first page. What are these? Mortgage transfers. He flipped through them. All yours. More than $78,000 over 3 years. His head snapped toward Dad. You told me you two were managing the mortgage. Mom shifted in her chair. We were managing it. Nadine was helping. Helping, I said. Apparently enough to become responsible for the payment even after you gave the house away. Melissa finally spoke. Nadine, I knew you were helping with it. I turned toward her. You knew. She hesitated. Yes. Then, when Mom and Dad transferred the house to you, what exactly was your plan for the mortgage? Melissa looked at Dad before answering. They said you'd keep paying. The room went still. Why? Because, she swallowed, they said it was basically what you were already doing. There it was. They had discussed my money. They had planned around my salary. They had decided my payments would continue. The only person excluded from that conversation had been me. Dad leaned forward. Ownership and family responsibility are two different things. No, I said. You don't get to separate them when it benefits you. Nadine, you gave Melissa the ownership. You gave her the security. You gave her the future. And then you quietly assigned the largest monthly expense to me. Mom said, nobody assigned you anything. Then there shouldn't be a problem when I stop paying. No one answered. I stood and left the statements on the table. As I reached the door, Dad's voice followed me. If you stop paying, Melissa could lose the house. I turned around. Then, why did you give her something she could afford? The mortgage payment stayed unpaid. That was when my family finally understood I wasn't bluffing. A few days later, Melissa received the notice. She called me before 8 in the morning. Nadine, they sent something about the mortgage. I know. You know. The payment wasn't made. Her voice rose. So you're really doing this? No, Melissa, I'm really not asterisk doing it anymore. By lunchtime, Mom had called 6 times. Dad tried that evening. Just make this month's payment, he said. Give us time to work something out. That's what temporary meant 3 years ago. This is different. No, another payment puts us right back where we started. After the call, I pulled out the mortgage paperwork I had kept from the years I'd been helping. I went through every page carefully. My name wasn't on the loan. I hadn't guaranteed it. I had no ownership interest. Those $2,180 transfers had been exactly what my parents originally called them, voluntary help. They could transfer their interest in the house to Melissa. They could not transfer my bank account with it. Meanwhile, Melissa's anger began shifting direction. She confronted Mom and Dad and demanded that they cover the payments from the money they had retained. That was when another problem surfaced. Their remaining savings were far smaller than Melissa had assumed. Suddenly, she wasn't talking about what she deserved. She was calculating what the house actually cost. Mom called again. Your sister is panicking. Then help her. We can't keep making those payments. Neither can I. You can, you're choosing not to. That sentence ended any doubt I still had. They weren't asking because there was no alternative. They were asking because I had always been the easiest alternative. I sent one message to all 3 of them. I will not contribute another dollar toward a property I do not own. Please make whatever financial decisions you need to make without including my income. I hit send and put my phone down. It rang almost immediately. Melissa. I considered ignoring it, then answered. Nadine, her voice sounded different now. What happened? There was silence on the other end. Then she said, Mom and Dad finally told me why they were so sure you'd keep paying. What did they tell you? I asked. Melissa was quiet for a moment. They talked about the mortgage before they transferred the house. I closed my eyes. That was the answer I had suspected since Mom said, we knew you'd still help us. Melissa continued. She asked Dad what would happen with the payments if the house became mine. Dad said it wouldn't matter because you'd been paying them for 3 years. And you knew this. I knew you were paying. I knew they thought you'd continue. Her voice dropped. I didn't know they'd never asked you. That distinction didn't make what happened acceptable, but it completed the picture. My parents hadn't forgotten about the mortgage. They had discussed it. They had identified the problem. Then they had decided the solution was me. Why didn't they ask? I said. Melissa hesitated. Dad said if they brought it up before the transfer, you might say no. I actually laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because that sentence stripped away every excuse. They knew consent mattered enough to avoid asking for it. Their plan had been simple. Complete the transfer first, announce that Melissa deserved everything, then trust that 3 years of habit and family guilt would keep $2,180 leaving my account every month. They hadn't just given my sister the asset. They had privately assigned me the sacrifice required to maintain it. A week later, I agreed to meet all three of them one final time. We sat around the same table where Dad had handed Melissa that folder. Nobody raised a glass this time. Dad spoke first. "We never intended to hurt you." I looked directly at him. "Then, why didn't you ask me about the mortgage before transferring the house?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Mom wiped her eyes. "We thought you'd understand. You've always been the strong one." "I am strong." She looked hopeful for half a second. Then I finished. "But being responsible doesn't make me responsible for all of you." Melissa stared down at her hands. "I'm sorry, Nadine." I waited. "I should have asked questions," she continued. "I accepted the house because I thought the payment was already handled. I never stopped to ask why you were supposed to finance something they were giving me. I appreciate you saying that. Will you help me until I figure this out?" "No." Her face tightened, but I didn't soften the answer. Accepting her apology did not require rescuing her from the consequences. Melissa eventually sat down with the numbers herself. The remaining mortgage, the monthly payment, insurance, taxes. Once she saw the actual cost of keeping the house, the gift looked very different. She couldn't comfortably afford it. Mom and Dad couldn't cover it either. So Melissa listed the house. When it sold, the proceeds covered the remaining mortgage and associated costs. But Melissa walked away with far less money than she had imagined when Dad slid that folder toward her. My parents moved into a smaller rental and began living from the savings they still had. The family story changed too. A few relatives had initially heard that I was jealous because Melissa inherited the house. Then they learned about the more than $78,000 I had already contributed. They learned my parents expected me to continue paying after transferring the property. The lectures about supporting family stopped. And every month, when the date of that old automatic transfer came around, $2,180 stayed in my account. I redirected it into savings for my own future home. For the first time in years, my financial discipline was building something for me. My relationship with my parents never returned to what it had been. I remained civil, but there were no more loans, no recurring payments, no financial plans made around my income without my agreement. Months later, Mom mentioned during a phone call that downsizing had been difficult. "We never thought we'd end up in such a small place," she said. The old version of me would have immediately started calculating what I could send. Instead, I listened. "I'm sorry it's been difficult, Mom." And that was all. No transfer. No rescue. No guilt. I finally understood that being a good daughter was not measured by how quickly I solved problems other people created. My parents told me my sister deserved the house. I finally decided I deserved my own future.